Okay.
Oh, you know what?
Yolanda, we're still waiting for a quorum.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, we gotta-
Okay.
gotta
We
have
need one more.
person, yeah.
I've got to show you all something.
Public
Say
notice
it,
about
and
this meeting.
I think that's a good thing. Maybe people will
He's going to have to do it. Okay, thank
watch
you.
their kids closer.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah, I think that one has
He's on his way.
particular
Oh, good.
facts that are
Who's he?
problematic for the.
David,
His
Yeah,
wife
because
is
they
right
made
in.
it, they
And I
made
saw
guns
Rick
accessible
yesterday,
to
he
them.
accidentally showed up to the P
I
and Z
mean, come
meeting,
on.
thinking it was the
And the
workshop.
mother
And
just
so I said, no, Thursday night,
was
so
so
he's
defensive for
aware.
him and made everything given to him basically.
That's the one where they tried to flee as well.
Yeah, I think they did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's the first time I've seen they're holding the parents liable.
Yolanda, can you hear me?
And I know there's got to be more circumstances than I know.
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
You must be muted.
Oh, now I can hear
There
you.
you go. There you go.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. You guys are muted for me.
Did you, remind me, did you ask for the original ordinances that we were talking about in regards to the, zoning?
For the, I asked for the line item. Yeah, the red line item. ones.
Okay, Sam, the red light item. Say it again, because Sam just walked in.
I asked for the red line for the two that were changed.
Planning and zoning.
Yeah.
Well, that's so far beyond red line because we revamped
Well-
the whole thing. I mean,
Yeah, we pretty.
I thought I heard.
yeah,
copies.
No, there was only one. I thought that there was only, I thought there was one that was, which one was it? Was it one that was new and then the other two were red line or?
Andy will answer for
If I
you.
may, so there are 3 zoning ordinances or bills being proposed, 2 of which are brand new, so there is no red line to
two
be
of
had.
Right.
And then the third one is the amendment to the existing 405790 special use permits. And that, I believe that has been distributed as a red line. I have not distributed a clean copy of that.
We don't have.
Is that in the email?
That,
No.
I don't believe that was in the
I
email.
don't have a
from
copy of,
2 days
I don't
ago.
have a copy of that one.
Um,
I'll go send it real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you exactly what it is. It takes it
Can you make
deletes.
copies, Sam?
So, you'll remember we moved the site
Site
plan.
plan review was part of that
provision.
ordinance.
It was part of that ordinance, we're moving it to a separate ordinance, so portions of that ordinance that are relevant to the new site plan ordinance, I've deleted those. And then there's just two other additions, regarding the special uses in the mixed use district. So the red lines are truly minimal on that one. And then the
But
other.
did it come in an email or did it, because I don't have a copy of it, that's what I'm
Sam's
asking.
gonna send it to you right now.
Did you hear that?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, so there's
Didn't-
really a lot of
I didn't,
red lines that are done here.
Yeah,
I didn't get the email.
Councilwoman, I believe that was sent out at the
yeah, these were in last week's.
council meeting.
Yeah, I pulled them out of this, but not, I didn't find all of them.
Laura,
2401, oh, those are easy, that's why I did it.
Hey, Missy.
Greetings, sir.
Hey.
All right, as soon as Sam returns, we'll get going.
So sorry, everyone.
No, thank you for being here.
Life happens.
I understand.
Is it already being recorded?
I did unmute because
Okay. That's
we announced that the meeting was starting.
Sure.
Now, we haven't called it to order yet, but if there is anybody attending via Zoom, I don't want them in the dark after 5:30, so.
Okay, so I see Kiana, there's two other people.
Yeah, I got phone calls from both Tony Evans, who is
Oh, no, on Zoom?
the other two people on Zoom are Yolanda and then the stream of the dais.
Oh, so we're,
Okay,
Yeah, I don't think we have any, people don't care about the workshop.
yeah, they don't show up for it.
well,
Well, that's where the meat is, right? That's where.
someone may.
That's where the sausage is made.
Exactly.
Right, I'm going to just get everybody in one place here and get this going.
It's a sad thing. The lack of resident involvement is a sad thing.
I always think it's good to have more resident involvement. The sad truth is,
What can we do?
you know, when they show up, when they're mad about something.
When we tried.
It doesn't have to be.
Doesn't
I'm
have to be,
hopeful.
but that's just.
What can we do? I'm hopeful. We could do more, I believe.
You're fighting against human nature, I think.
Well, no, I'm not gonna give up with that.
That means they own
We
the
could do more.
airspace, which is a property line up to infinity.
Wow.
Well, if that's the case, drones aren't supposed to go over residential,
Gotcha.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that was a fed,
Wow.
and they tried to back them, and tried to give them the money back, and they were sign this and do that.
Yeah.
Very much paying attention.
Are you kidding me?
They were seeing the money.
Seriously?
She had something better to do with that. She's busy.
She's busy wrestling me.
Paul Murphy, which was our mayor at the time, was very adamant against it because of that.
We were just waiting for Sam
Yes.
to get here. He's sending out an email.
We had,
Boy, I need a-
The night before when I was on the plane.
I need a-
Okay, that's okay. You've got room to
The meeting
spread.
started at 5:30.
What's up, Debbie?
No, I need, I took.
Oh, yeah.
The next morning, they
It's
said,
a lot.
"Call me back and then they called."
Okay.
I figured it was ready, I could already get started. So,
Would you two be interested in just sharing this mixed-use district ordinance? Sure. I'm pretty familiar with it, so.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, we need to talk. Yeah, they were good conversations, they weren't bad, there was nothing nasty, it was just different ways to look at.
We
one
signed up to
thing.
go to their Project Clear grant.
Good.
I did a, email to Bring Conservation Home. Yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more.
I was on the initial call a few months ago where they recorded and that served as the new training video for a whole project.
Ew,
So
people tell
that
us
was-
them when we go. Yeah,
It makes it a lot easier because the original training that I did was very confusing and misleading, and I thought it was in over my head, but
this
Turned
is the
out.
orientation meeting, or
yes.
and you know the library
So
has
we're gonna
like
bring in
10
printouts.
workshops.
Okay.
In a minute here.
The library is
Well,
like
yeah.
10 native.
If you
uh,
sent it, we're gonna
landscaping
go ahead and
workshops.
start.
Do you want me to email you?
Yes, please.
Yeah, they're very good. I've been to some.
All right, let's call this meeting to order. Can we have a roll call vote, please? Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilman Sachsenheimer,
Here.
Councilwoman Cleveland,
Here.
Councilman Hong,
Here.
Councilwoman Rosso,
Here,
Councilwoman Campbell,
Here.
you have a quorum.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is discussion of Council Bill 23-30.
Hello? Hello?
Mayor, I'm sorry, will you please unmute again? For some reason it muted.
what's the
Let me get that thing over. Made my big mouth.
We can hear you now.
Okay, Council Bill 23-31, we had our first reading at the December meeting, and we have no mixed-use zoning in the city of Normandy, and this ordinance creates the mixed-use zoning designation. Now, it does not designate any particular piece of real estate or any area with that designation, it just creates the designation. And the important part to look at on this bill is what's allowed, what's not allowed, and what's allowed with a special use, and those are all listed on the second page of the ordinance. I hope everybody had a chance to look those over. I will tell you that the Planning and Zoning Commission spent 6 months working on this, and I think the end result is a good one. But if there's any questions or any suggested changes, I'd like to go over them now. We'd really like to get this read and passed at the next meeting.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, that's what we're here for. Go
Steve,
ahead.
you're on the committee.
Yes.
How are you feeling about this?
I like it.
I mean, Steve, I mean,
Oh, Steve.
We spent a lot of time and we had some very good constructive criticism, and we threw a lot of ideas into one pot. And this is what we came up with. I think that's very good.
and you feel the same way. Mark, you were saying.
I do. I'm happy with the outcome. Actually, when we voted to recommend passing, it was a unanimous vote. Everybody was in a place that they liked to be. Yes.
So may I ask a question?
Sure.
So then the buildings now that have apartments on top and businesses on the bottom, there's no zoning? that-
They're non-conforming, but they're grandfathered in. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's yeah, they're non-conforming uses because we assume the apartment was there before the zoning code was adopted. Now, the thing about non-conforming is if you stop using it for 2 years, so if there's a vacancy for at least 2 years, then they can't go back in.
So the building's vacant,
Right.
it's,
But now if we rezone an old building that does have apartments up top, now it would just be a conforming use. So,
Sorry.
Please, go ahead, Yolanda.
Sam, did you email me yet?
yeah, I just sent an email. Did you get it?
No, I haven't gotten anything.
What are you just like trying to send it?
are you gonna pass them out?
Did you send it to everybody?
Oh.
I don't know,
Yeah,
Sure.
Did you send it? What time did you? Let's see. Did you?
He's checking.
Did you send it to me? Does it say? Can you tell me the title?
I replied to the
I got you, thank you.
The January 25th, 2024 city council meeting workshop change.
Uh,
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
What were you trying to send us everything?
See an email at 5:40 that says Exhibit A ordinance mixed use and CB 30.
That's
Wait,
it.
no, now I just got another email,
Yeah,
like
I
just now.
should be the same.
This is not the red line.
So the one that says ordinance mixed use,
This is, just,
Is that the red line?
I think you're right.
well, like Andy was saying, for the mixed use district, there is no red line because the entire ordinance is new.
So the one that I'm asking about is the old one. This is not 20, it's not 23, 21.
The old one would be 2333.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking about 2331 is because it says amending chapter 405. Does amendment mean that it was created?
This is the last one.
Amending, so chapter 45 is the entirety of the zoning code. And currently there are 18 separate articles in chapter 405 dealing with everything from particular district regulations to additional height regulations, the Board of Adjustment procedures. So when we say that the ordinance is amending chapter 45, we are amending chapter 45 because we're adding a new
For 405.
19.
405.
Okay,
Yes, 405.
Of chapter 45.
No, there's just chapter
He
405.
misspoke.
Mayor's.
He misspoke, chapter
I
405.
think that's it.
Oh, did I say 45? I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, he gave it to us to look
I
at.
will get confused.
Yeah.
I apologize for that.
Yes,
So,
Chapter
yeah,
405
this is
is
31.
the zoning
It doesn't
code,
say-
and we are amending it by
This
adding
is it.
new
This is-
text.
If you look at this is,
So everything on
this is the
ordinance,
mixed use zoning.
Now I gotta look at the agenda.
2331 is completely new. It's a new
I
chapter.
believe that's.
It's a
I
new
believe it's the same
subsection of
thing,
that
right.
chapter. Because previously, mixed use was not allowed.
I just wrote.
okay, I get it now. Thank you.
Okay. So, are there any other questions or suggested revisions or changes to 23-31?
So one of my questions is if the permitted use is on the list, no matter where the business wants to locate, we have,
Well, once we designate an area as mixed use, there's no areas designated as mixed use right now. And we're not doing that right
but I think it was an echo, I wasn't saying that. But no matter where a business wants to locate, if that area is specifically designated for mixed use, then they just have to fill out a business license and then they are granted that property.
That's correct. It does not go to planning and zoning. It does not go before the council.
Now, they may still be required to obtain a business license, they will still need to obtain an occupancy permit, right? So
No, they
it's-
still have to go through the regular
Yeah.
application process.
They won't need any additional zoning approval.
Right, right.
Okay,
I'm remembering, may I talk?
Yes.
I'm remembering conversations, it's been a while, that the business license needed to be upgraded and holding the businesses more accountable. Does that have to do with this?
Yeah, well, I kind of remember those discussions when we updated the business license. And I believe what I recommended at the time, what you guys were trying to do, should be done through the zoning code as opposed to the business license. So this is where,
Oh,
if you want to enforce what goes where, this is the type of ordinance that does that, not so much the business licenses, which really just collect tax.
Yeah.
so the other thing that I was kind of concerned about was that, like, it's kind of like you said, like, if it's zoned for it, then it goes there, but then, like, one of the concerns that I had was, like, like this doesn't address really like the parking. Like if a business decides to be somewhere, I want to say like it's similar to the, like, we had a situation where the gentleman came and he's like, I want to have a used car lot. And then, people, you know, it was like, I want it here. And so if we don't have the parking for like certain things, like how is that addressed? Or does that, or is that addressed in here, or is it addressed?
It is, there are still parking regulations built into this code, for any business based on square footage. But that discussion came up in planning and zoning also. And there was general agreement that parking, restrictions should be kept at a minimum because you really restrict business. People usually work it out. If they don't have parking, they're not opening a particular business. So there are still existing,
Mayor, if I may.
go please.
There are not parking restrictions.
I
in
thought
this
on
code.
square foot there was.
There are not. So an initial draft of this code did have parking regulations.
Okay.
And the commission decided that the parking regulations, given that Normandy is already a built-out city, that parking regulations would really serve as a deterrent to business
All right,
development.
I stand corrected.
But I'll add to that, I mean, parking regulations, it's a hotly debated issue in local government, as exciting as it sounds. So, I mean, it's perfectly legitimate to have parking regulations. So if the council wishes to have parking regulations, most cities do have them, but there is kind of a newer trend to really either have very minimal parking regulations or just not have them at all.
Yeah, to piggyback on what Sam was saying, parking regulations are the norm, but increasingly cities are experimenting with that to spur exactly this kind of mixed-use development. I recently saw in the news the largest city to do away with any parking restrictions is Austin, Texas. They did that a few months ago. So it's not. It's a newer trend in planning, in urban planning, but it's not totally a fringe idea. So again, if the council is inclined to talk about and reinsert some parking regulations, then that is the council's prerogative. And I can talk about some language that. So let me pull up the initial language that was included in the draft, and just to give a sense, and I'm just gonna read it, but it'll give you a sense.
But this is a new draft, right? So there wouldn't be language?
I'm talking about an older draft that the commission had considered.
Referring to.
So at one point, there was talk, an initial parking regulation was, commercial buildings shall provide essentially one parking space for each 300 square feet of floor space, which is used for commercial purposes. So if you have 600 square feet of commercially, like your actual publicly accessible storefront is 600 feet, you would have to have 2 parking spaces. I mean, essentially. And then there's a slightly different ratio for restaurants. But that's the extent of what was in there. And it's really just about trying to find, if there are going to be parking regulations, and Sam, I'm sorry, then it's really about finding the right kind of ratio so that it is definitely possible to have too heavy of a parking requirement such that development really cannot happen.
May I ask a question?
Please, Debbie.
So what if we don't have parking regulations, but if an issue comes up that we have to address, can we address it then?
So I'm going to kind of answer that in an indirect way. So as written, if a property owner wants to use their property for a permitted use, the kind of use that they don't need to get any additional zoning approval for, then there would be no parking restrictions. But if somebody wanted to use a special use, for example, a restaurant with drive-through facilities or a tavern and bar, or an outpatient care center, they would have to obtain a special use permit from planning and zoning and the council, and additional parking requirements could be imposed as part of that special use permit. So any of the uses that are included under the special use permit, the council would have authority, the city would have authority to impose parking requirements there. If the development, was one that the city deemed needed, some specific carve-outs.
But to be clear and to repeat Debbie's question, if we were to grant a business license to a restaurant because it's a permitted use, and it down the road created a parking issue, we couldn't address that after the fact.
Well, if it depends on what we mean by a parking issue. If they
Well,
are-
we've had that before, so let's think back to like what happened before, and we did have parking issues. And that wasn't addressed, it was just like ticket the people.
Well, and so that's, right, so if the parking issue is that the restaurant is complaining that they don't have enough parking, it's kind of on them for, like building a restaurant where they didn't have adequate parking. If the issue is that the roads are getting congested, then the city could impose some parking requirements, some parking restrictions that would address those. If the issue is that people are parking in other parking lots and the business owners are upset about it, then they can have vehicles towed from their private lot.
Yeah.
So there are, it just depends on the issue, there are ways to address it.
But there's nothing that you can do that we could, is there anything that we so beforehand, if we decided you want to have a restaurant here, you have this parking and you have this, these amount of spaces like allotted to you. And then if the business doesn't adhere to those spaces, for instance, if they park on the sidewalk or they park on the circle or anything like that, like what's our, if the ordinance stays as is, like what's our way, but like what's our recourse instead of just like, or do we have any other than just like we ticket and tow?
Well, parking in the circle is already prohibited, if I'm not mistaken, so, so that would, they'd be ticketed and towed. And if I believe the circle is one of the areas of the city where immediate towing can occur, if I'm not.
But it's just ticket and tow.
Because that's,
I will say this though, the rationale behind just avoiding the parking restriction, and we talked about it at length, was to encourage development as much as we can on the corridor, let the free market work it out. People aren't gonna build a restaurant where they're not gonna have patrons be able to get to it because lack of parking. But the idea was take as many restrictions off as we can, and let the free market manage. And again, as Sam mentioned, that seems to be a trend that's up and coming right now.
Well,
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here because we have seen what happens when the free market, especially like across the street, next, like 2 doors from my house, what happens when the free market just reigns. So I don't feel comfortable saying like they'll figure it out. We've seen what happens in the past when we have not given them restrictions and they have just been allowed to figure it out. I think that's the whole point of like us. We need to say like this area is for this and this is the space that you have for this. And we have residents that are here that literally butt up to a business. And unfortunately, everyone doesn't, run themselves in that way. So we've seen that in the past. I don't think this is a free market, they'll figure it out type of a thing, because it took us so long to like make sure that everything like worked out. Like we had to go through so many hoops for
and that's fair. I just think we have to be careful because of the congested building on Natural Bridge. There's limited parking, and I think business owners are going to have to make agreements with each other. There's a lot of parking there, but it's all owned by a few people. We don't own that real estate. Business owners are going to have to make agreements with other business owners, and if we make it too restrictive, you're just not going to be able to put there's more commercial square footage under roof than what we would have parking for. If you make it too restrictive. And you're gonna have vacant buildings.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Please, Debbie.
So the land that the old firehouse was on, and it's in limbo for the park, is it, and someone did bring it up months, maybe a year ago, for a parking lot, can we put that on our list of keep in mind?
We can, but we may never get another park grant if we do that. That was park grant money that made that green space.
This is my issue. We are a pool tax city, and so it's not like if someone comes in here and makes $1 million a year, like we're gonna like benefit from it. So my whole thing is, you know, we have residents, especially in my ward, especially in Ward 4, that don't really reside in a very like residential area, just because of they're on the business side. And so like if we don't right now cause restrictions to parking and things like that, I feel like it's going to catapult itself into being something that it was before. And we're, and I'm like, and that's my concern. And that has been my concern like in the past.
Well, at this point, if you're recommending a change to this text, you can make a motion. Do you have a specific idea in mind, or just refer back to the old parking restrictions?
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna
Sam.
say. I mean, the parking restrictions that Andy listed earlier that were in the earlier draft, they're the same parking restrictions that we currently have in the F and E districts in Normandy.
He just said that the parking restrictions have been done away with. I thought the old one.
The old one
in
he's talking
an
about.
earlier draft. So, but right now, in our commercial and neighborhood shopping districts, it's 300 square feet for commercial, 200 for restaurants. You can also base it off of like how many seats you have. You need X amount of parking spaces for X amount of tables at your restaurant. Like Florissant says, if you're a golf range, how many tees you have, or how many barbershop chairs you have. You can do it a million different ways, but for simplicity, we could just adopt the same parking regulations as F&E. But I will tell you, depending on how you think development of the Natural Bridge Corridor is going to go, I think realistically, a lot of the old buildings are going to be there for a long time. They were built before cars were, everyone had a car, right? Cars were still kind of a novelty, so there is no parking. So, like Mayor Beckman said, we have a lot of space with very limited parking, and then, so depending on how we write our codes, we may be saying to people, unless you make that a use that doesn't require parking, then you can't have anything.
Right.
So,
If we're going by your argument that the buildings are gonna be here for a long time, I don't see anyone coming into our community if we don't build a parking garage that would, like there is in like, I don't know, like the Central West End, which also has a limited amount of parking, but they have they've built a parking garage, or like in the Grove, where there is also a limited amount of parking, but they have a parking garage or parking, like public parking lots. I don't see like any business coming in and being like, hey, let me use this. If that's like, if the argument is like these buildings are like the way that they are and they're going to be here forever, then why would a new business come in and say like, I want to be here?
Well, I agree with you.
Unless
Unless
we are going to actively build public parking.
Well, if we had the money to do that, I couldn't agree more. That would be the answer to a lot of problems on the Natural Bridge Corridor. It would be great. I mean, that's another item on the capital improvement list that's probably not gonna be a priority after we see our street assessment. But yeah, no, I agree 100%. If we could somehow figure out a way to put in a public parking garage, that would be outstanding.
Right.
yeah, and
Well, what I'm saying is because we have limited amount of parking and because we have residential areas that are very close to our quote unquote downtown, it would seem that we should also have restrictions on parking that allow residents to have a peace of mind that is not going to also, like you said, be congested on Natural Bridge when you're coming home from work at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
I will just tell you, if I was opening a restaurant there, I would probably try to arrange some kind of lease with O'Reilly's, who has way more parking than they need, and pay them a few bucks a month and lease 12 parking spots or something to that effect. Like I said, you know, I would be more inclined to let the free market work it out, and I know I'm repeating myself, but if it's too restrictive, you're designating the corridor to remain vacant,
If
with
I may.
vacant buildings. Please, David.
Okay, so when I think of mixed-use spaces that are both commercial and residential that have parking, for instance, I think of spots in Creve Coeur, Olivet. Now we've seen a large number of mixed-use developments just within the last year and a half, where you're getting new structures built that also have parking built into it, meaning an attached garage or a garage on the back end, whether it's small or large. Some of them can accommodate, you know, maybe 10 or 12 cars. Then the bigger ones with more money can accommodate 50 to 100 cars, right? So we have seen that is something that we can hope for, but based on our existing infrastructure, as Mayor Beckman already said, we don't have the room, we don't have the space for it. So if we tie our own hands and make it so that they have to have a set number of parking spaces, there's no way that they're gonna be able to open up a business of any kind to be able to do that, unless you have a big developer with pockets deep enough to tear down the existing structure and build a parking garage and a mixed-use space, specifically for a mixed-use bill, or ordinance, I should say.
Well, again, I think unless somebody has an opinion on this particular issue, if you have specific motion that you want to make to amend, we should.
Well, this is the thing. This is the reason why I wanted to talk about this at a workshop. You know, you said that it took 6 months for planning and zoning to work this out, and I think that is great that they took their time and that they, you know, they weeded through everything. I don't think that us like, oh, do you have a motion that you want to make right now? Then make it right now. Is like if it took 4 or 5 people 6 months to figure it out, you know, like, and we are talking, we're having a discussion about this particular topic. I don't think that it's like we should make a motion right now and then we're going to bring it to the meeting next month and then we're going to vote on it, unless it's somebody like coming to us and saying like, hey, we really want to build a Marshalls or a TJ Maxx right here, and you guys don't have the space for it. No, that's not happening. So I think it behooves us, if it took them 6 months, we should at least wait for half the time, especially since we have a new board member that's going to be coming who has not given their input from Glen Echo. Like, that person should also be privy to like giving their ideas about what's going on. So I would say that like we're still in discussions about it. We should still be asking questions about it. I would say that if it took them 6 months, it should take us at least half the time to talk about this. And that doesn't happen until February when Glen Echo comes on. And I'm sure like other board members may have, you know, like I'm just saying, like, I don't think we should rush anything. And I am not in a position like right now to say, you know what, I read this, like you're saying, oh, well, Creve Coeur has this and like they have that here and they have this here. Well, I haven't read those things. So I don't have the foreknowledge to say like, I definitely wanted to say this.
Okay.
And I think that's a fair, like, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. But.
So with the exception of parking, are there any other anticipated issues, questions, changes?
The other thing that I had a question about, was the landscaping.
Go ahead.
So like with the landscaping and the planting and things like that, when the landscaping happens, it is going to be for only new businesses and not for businesses that are already established. Yes?
Andy?
That is correct.
Is there a way for us to establish the same landscaping or buffers for businesses that are already established, particularly like I have been talking about this like since my first term, like a fence that basically divides the alleyway along Natural Bridge with Normandy Place. There's no way that we can accommodate that in this ordinance at all?
So I think the particular difficulty with the buildings on the south side of Natural Bridge, which abut Normandy Place, is that those buildings they predate the zoning code. So the actual like dimensions of those buildings are considered legal non-conforming uses, and we can't until they meet the criteria set out in the non-conforming use code, we can't basically require them to change the dimensions of their buildings to satisfy the current zoning code. And given that those buildings are pretty well built out to the edges of those lots, there's nowhere to put and require them to put the landscape and buffer requirements. Does that answer your question?
So, okay, so this, sorry. Was that me? Was that my echo?
Yeah, you're listening to yourself there.
We can't, so there's no way, I guess I'm trying to ask, like, is there any way that we could get any type of fencing or landscaping, like right now, or like that would be useful for that purpose?
If the abutting property owners wanted to put it on their own property, then I think that would be, that's kind of.
That would be the only way. Okay.
But again, we run into the non-conforming use issue with those existing buildings that have been there for quite some time.
Debbie, you had a question also?
So, I don't know if this is changing though. So with the multi-use, and what were the list of special, yeah.
There's permitted, special use, and prohibited.
So special uses, so many of these special uses and, permitted can be on the second floor then?
Can you repeat your question, please?
So the permitted uses and or the special uses, can they be on the second floor? Is that what use means?
That is correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
So what it says, and you're looking at the bottom of page 2.
I'm looking at the bottom of page 6. Maybe. I read over 2 probably.
Oh, well, so pages 5 through 7, I believe, are the actual lists of the uses. But how those uses are actually implemented is on page 2, under 405-1010, use regulations. And what that section says at the bottom of page 2 is that for the upper level of any building may be used for any use that is set forth as a permitted use along with multifamily residential. So the main difference is that the list of permitted uses, as well as any special use, can be used on either floor. The upper level can also be used for like a multifamily residential apartment, but you cannot have apartments on the first floor.
Got it.
That's I think the clearest way to describe the difference between the uses on the ground floor and the upper levels.
And again, I'll just give you the rationale, was to give any potential developer as much flexibility that if they can see that they can turn a profit on said square feet of commercial ground, they put a business below, an apartment above. That apartment above can be a lifesaver between making a profit and not making a profit. If they choose to put a business below and a business above, they can certainly do that too.
Right.
And the restriction then also prevents someone from just building an apartment building, right?
Yeah,
Which has
yeah,
no
it has,
commercial
it
use.
has to be commercial on the first floor.
Mayor, can I,
Please.
yeah, I know I'm kind of coming in on the tail end, but, with, Councilman Campbell, I recall that there was fencing in Ward 4 behind those businesses. They started fencing, there should have been an ordinance because they did start fencing back there several years ago. I don't know if they didn't finish it, but when Kim Knox was on the board, right behind her house and across from you, where you live, there was fencing going up. I'm not sure exactly who the fencing company was. but
There's no fencing.
There's none at all?
The
No.
black fence,
The
Yolanda.
black fence, Yolanda, that's on behind
That
the,
fence does not extend, that fence does not extend to the length of South Natural Bridge like you're talking about. That fence actually only extends to probably like,
Two houses.
maybe 1/10 of the way down.
I understand what you're saying, but they had started that and it wasn't completed. So there should have been an ordinance or some records where they were doing it and the person who was in charge of the company. I guess you can recall that, don't you?
Yeah.
You
The,
know.
I do recall that, but I would also like to say, just to jog your memory, that was not something that was actually approved by the board. That was actually something that was just kind of like initiated by a mayor 2 terms ago. So that wasn't something that could have been like finished properly because in the bankruptcy process, because of bills that weren't paid, they were actually included in that litigation.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't want to go there. There's a lot of fencing that was put up that was on private property and paid for with city dollars that shouldn't.
So what I'm
That's-
trying
that's
to say
irrelevant
is, I
to
would
the-
like to, I would like to have, like, I would like to figure out a way to effectively and legally and professionally protect the businesses and the residents to like keep those areas separate. And I'm not sure, because I have limited knowledge of this, I'm asking, I guess I'm asking for more guidance as to how we let that happen, or even if that can happen at all.
Well, I'll defer to Andy again, but I think unless it's a new construction, I thought that was the case, that the question is there any way to create a buffer between the business district and the residential areas?
Yeah, and I would kind of like to change my answer a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
So I mean, I was really thinking of specifically like those buildings along the wedge that are, or the circle that are truly right up against the end of the lot. But if you look at the remainder of the buildings that go down east on Natural Bridge, I'm thinking Afroworld, the Chop Suey Place, Lee's, things like that. Again, if those properties were ultimately to be rezoned to mixed use, then I think the way those structures stand now would be a non-conforming use, and we would not be able to impose the new landscape requirements. But let's say that Afroworld decides to build a second story and add an apartment, or changes the use, right? Then I think the landscape buffer would apply, right? So if these lots are, so if a lot is rezoned mixed use, and then the owner decides to take advantage of that mixed use designation to expand their operations and use the property in a way that it could not formerly be used, then I think, yes, that landscape buffer will now apply. But that's the circumstance under which it would apply to an existing lot.
There has to be some new construction or major
Yes,
renovation.
there has to be some sort of change beyond the way that it's been used prior to the rezoning.
Yeah, basically, how non-conforming works is they don't get a permit for anything unless it's to bring it into conformance. They're just kind of stuck where they're at. But, and just kind of responding to your feedback, Councilwoman Campbell, and not having discussed it with Andy, would you be interested in where a mixed use abuts in the rear to a single family, having a rule that you have to have a privacy fence that's, this tall? Is that something you want added to this ordinance or would be interested in?
Yeah, that is something that I would be interested in because I don't, I was gonna talk about the landscaping. I don't think landscaping does a very good job of causing a noise buffer or like lights or things like that. So that's like one of my concerns. But then the other thing is too, um, for the businesses that are already there and for the residents that are already there, we have a lot of people cutting through and everything. And I was just trying to figure out a way if we could somehow like kill two birds with one stone when it came to this.
Sure. Well, and I think you could have landscape buffers and then also have a fence requirement as well. When it applies.
But that's only for new construction, right?
Yeah, yes, but like, let's say we impose it and someone has a chain link fence or some other sort of fence, and it comes time that they need to replace that fence because it's past its useful life. When they replace it, it would have to conform to the standards that we.
So you're telling me if a business already has a fence and then that fence has deteriorated in some way that it is not useful, then we could tell that business, you need to replace this fence with this type of fencing,
Well,
according to this ordinance.
yeah, if we adopted this ordinance and we said if you have a rear yard, and again, I haven't talked to Andy about the legality of this, but I don't see why it would be an issue. Rear yard, when you abut against a single family, you have to have this sort of fence, and we say, 6 foot tall privacy fence or something like that. And then, yes, if they go to replace their fence, then it would have to conform.
Who tells them that they have to replace the fence? They just decide to replace the fence on their own, or we have Rick come out and say, your fence needs to be replaced?
Violates the property maintenance.
Right. So in my example I'm given, they just decide to replace the fence. But as Andy just commented, we could tell them, hey, your fence is violating the property maintenance code, you have to replace it. But that's outside of the zoning ordinance. But so either way, right? It could be they just want to replace it, or if it's a nuisance, I guess.
Well, violation.
A violation, we could tell them they have to replace it.
And that's a separate mechanism,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, that
That's-
exists right
But
now.
that's what, yeah.
That already exists.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It would be a different mechanism. It'd be a code enforcement issue as opposed to a zoning issue, like what we're trying to focus on.
Right.
It's just zoning.
Yeah, and like right now, we could say, hey, your fence is not up to code, and then they could just take down the fence, right? They don't have to put up a fence, because we don't have a code saying they have to have a fence. But we did have something about fences in here in the rear yard, then it would be a different scenario.
But they don't have to put one up then, so it
Well,
would go back to the,
No, they would have to conform with, if they change something, they have to conform. As long as they keep doing what they're doing. And
but you just said they don't have to put up a fence then.
Well, no, if we don't have, like right now.
Oh, got it,
Yeah.
okay.
So, the two issues that I'm hearing is a buffer between residential property and the commercial corridor and mandating, some type of, minimal parking requirement for businesses are the two issues we're dealing with.
I think this is just my opinion. The way that, I think David and I were saying the same thing. We don't have public parking, and like, if we did have a developer come in, I'm sure that they would build, public parking, like I said, like it is in the Grove, or like it isn't, like David said, like it is in Creek 4. However, with Sam's comment, like he said, the businesses that are in Normandy are the businesses that are in Normandy. And like he said, they're probably going to be here for a really long time. And the fact that they're going to be here for a really long time, and we're going to have residents for a really long time, and we're going to have these businesses that basically what you get is what you get for parking. I think, if it is what it is, then that just is what it is. And until we can, like, maybe later down the road build a public parking structure just that's owned by Normandy and things like that, I don't think that I just don't think that it's like a good idea to say like, oh, you guys figure out the parking, because we kind of saw what happened when we kind of said like, hey, figure it out, you know?
Well,
That's all I'm saying.
Go ahead, Sam.
yeah, and I think kind of what the more parking you require, that hurts existing buildings. It doesn't really hurt new buildings, because the new buildings will have incentive to build the parking that they need, right? But it hurts the existing ones that were built before cars. So like, we are going to come to a spot, and I know this is literally close to home for you, Councilman Campbell, but where Normandy Auto Body is, right now, it used to be like a warehouse, right? A car shop where they store cars and whatnot. If they wanted to redevelop that to a commercial use, we're gonna get to a point where we have to tell them no, because you don't meet the parking requirements. And then we're gonna just basically have to tell them, you have to keep your place vacant because you don't meet the parking requirements. And if you're worried about intensity in that one spot, maybe, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not really making an argument one way or another. I'm just, that's the kind of stuff that we're gonna face.
I don't have a problem facing that. I didn't tell you to buy that building. I didn't tell you to sell it to somebody. But if that's what if you decide to buy a building somewhere, I think as a business owner, if you're making a business plan, and if you're a person who is methodically thinking about like what you want in your business and how you want your business to grow, you have to think about those things. And I think that it's important for you to say, like, if I want my business to grow, that I have like 20 more customers next year or 30 more customers the year after and everything like that. You have to think about like where you put in your business. That's not really my job. My job is to make sure that the residents of this area are comfortable and that they're not disturbed when they come home from, when they come home from work, or like, like when they're having dinner with their family. I'm not saying that I'm not for, I am completely for businesses developing and Normandy developing and everything like that. But I think that the way that it stands right now, it's like, who are we gonna like give it to people that like it may happen in the future to people that are already here that have put their hard-earned money into these homes.
Well, and I can add to that too. Again, if we put too restrictive, if we put too burdensome restrictions, the current property owner will simply not be able to sell that to a business owner. It's not, well, a business owner should only buy it if he can accommodate these restrictions. You're placing restrictions on a property, on a current business owner or a current property owner with a vacant building that we may be just designating it vacant for many, many years to come if they're too burdensome. So I think there has to be a happy balance.
Yeah, that's my.
But the way that our ordinance stands right now, correct me if I'm wrong, you can have a business at that Normandy Auto Body. I've seen, there have been businesses there, and people have parked there, and the parking has been ample. And I'm not saying, look, somebody else brought it up, but the parking has been ample and everything like that. So let me get this straight in my mind. If they decide that they want it to be a commercial use, under this new ordinance, right, it would be like, you can have commercial use and you can basically tell your people to park your customers to park wherever they fit in. Is that right?
So I guess I'm not sure that I understand the question.
If with this new ordinance, if they decide that they want commercial use, because basically, I guess this is what I hear you saying. We are currently, with our current ordinances, tying their hands. Is that right?
Yeah, I am saying that.
Okay.
And again,
Under this new ordinance, the way that it is, they come and they say, we want to have a commercial business here, it would be like, well, you guys just park wherever you want, right? I mean, within reason, because if somebody else owns the parking, you
Legally
can't park.
park wherever you can find a parking space.
Yeah, wherever
I mean,
you can find a parking
They do have a parking lot, but right now, I would have to tell them, you have to build more parking lot or find more spaces. But yeah, no, you're pretty much right. If this passed and it got rezoned, they could just use the parking that they have.
So
And-
do you know yet, or are you suggesting we go back to the old parking requirements, or do you not know yet? You've not formulated that opinion yet?
I haven't formulated that opinion. We're having a discussion. Like I said, I think that this is the important part of, yeah, we're having a discussion.
Well, I have a proposal.
Go ahead.
If we're gonna bring this to multiple workshops, which I'm absolutely fine with, no rush on the mixed use district ordinance. We can bring multiple different parking requirements. We can have it as it is, where there's really no requirements. We can have requirements based off of use, and we can have requirements based off of square footage, and we can talk about it there and make a decision.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Take
I'm
this to the
comfortable with
next
that. I think this is just what I'm saying. I think that I need to have more knowledge about what other people have done, what other communities have done, and like how that is going to affect us. And also, I think that I've talked to people, and I live close to the fence. There are people, my neighbors, that live close to the fence, and I think that I would like to get like their input and say like, you know, this is what's happening. I am very, very appreciative of like all the work that planning and zoning has done, but I also feel like we need to do our due diligence as well, and just to make sure that like we're not coming back to the table like 6 months later and like, oop, that didn't work. And you know, just because we want to get it passed.
That's fair.
We'll just not have our second reading at the February 8th meeting, and we'll take it to the next workshop.
I will put together for the next, sorry, Councilwoman, at the next workshop, I'll put together, for the next workshop, I will put together a few different options, maybe like the lenient, the middle of the road, and the draconian, just for everyone to kind of get a sense of what the different options are, what the spectrum is in terms of parking regulations. I'll look at some of the other codes that exist in the area. I'll look at Olivet, I'll look at Creve Coeur, and get a sense of what other cities are doing. Maybe we can, keep this discussion rolling at the next,
Very
does
good.
anyone have anything else they'd like me to prepare for that in that vein?
Yeah, just,
David, go ahead.
for page 3, for the height regulations.
Yes.
No building shall exceed 3 stories or 45 feet in height. If we were to explore avenues of a developer creating an attached parking garage or some other method of providing parking, would that limit us, or is there a way that we could change that to 4 stories? Or is there a need for that? I'm not sure where this was derived from.
That's a,
I think I may have an answer. So that matches our current zoning. The 45 3 stories, that's the max height in Normandy as it currently exists. If we're gonna increase it, we may need to talk to the fire district, make sure everything's okay.
Okay,
But,
sure.
yeah, I mean, we could increase it.
in the current code, public, semi-public, or public service buildings, hospitals, institutions, or schools may be erected to a height not exceeding 60 feet.
Okay.
And then churches and temples may be erected to a height not exceeding 75, so long as the building is set back from each yard line at least 1 foot for each foot of additional building height above the baseline height, which is the 60 feet. So there are certain buildings in Normandy are already allowed to be up to 60 or 75 feet. Art, I'm trying to think of any buildings except for a couple that might even be close to that. But
Absolutely.
May I
Right.
point out something? Is UMSL's parking fit into here then? Are they
No,
in Normandy?
UMSL does what UMSL wants to
Oh,
do.
okay.
Yeah, they're a state institution.
yeah.
Okay.
It's their land.
Yeah. We,
I
even though
see.
they're within our city,
Right,
right,
right, get it.
Yeah.
I called other cities that have University of Missouri campuses and spoke with their legal department and asked how they regulate, and they said, we don't.
we don't. We do what we want.
Good answer.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. Moving on, I have a question for you, Andy. Site plan review and non-conforming use. If we were to pass these two, they're still independent of the mixed-use district. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay.
Well, not entirely.
I knew that we pulled site plan review out of the non-conforming use ordinance.
So the site plan regulation, or the site plan ordinance is separate from, that can be passed independently of the mixed use.
Yes.
If the council does elect to move forward with adopting the site plan ordinance and the amendments to 405-790, there would just need to be an amendment, because one of the proposed amendments to 405-790 is adding the reference to the mixed-use district. But that can easily be taken out and then added in later.
Well, if it causes a complication, we can pass them all at the same time and just wait on it.
I mean, it'd be a little weird, but I don't see anything legally impermissible or problematic with adopting a reference to a mixed-use district that doesn't yet exist, because there would be nothing to.
If we can get this off our table, I'd like to, and I don't think these are gonna be controversial.
Right.
Why would,
Go ahead.
I'm confused. I'm confused. Like, is there a reason why we would want to pass one and not the other? Is there something coming down the pike that we need to like hurry up and do?
Well, we've had our first reading on it, just, if it's a non-controversial issue, we can have our second reading and pass it. Like I said, the site plan review was pulled out of non-conforming use ordinance so that other ordinance that we pass can just refer to it. It doesn't have to be built
Well,
into it.
It does, so.
Go ahead, Sam.
Here's the short answer about it does that, but the site plan review ordinance, basically, anytime someone builds something new of any significance, it goes before planning and zoning and they get to look at it. And give their stamp of approval. Before, it was only relating to special uses. But now,
Oh.
there's some square footage in here. And there's some exceptions to it. But yeah, 500 if it's a commercial building.
Oh, that's
so-
right, 500, yeah.
Yeah, so this won't apply to like single family houses, but if it's a commercial building, if it's over 500 square feet, or if it's an addition over 500 square feet, they have to submit plans and that has to go before P and Z. And they can appeal it to the council, but
Well, I don't know what our potential buyer across the street wants to do, but if there were new construction and the council wants to be involved in the site plan review, we could move forward with this ordinance.
Is that why we need to pass this? You're saying?
Well, I'm
Because
just
the
saying,
people
I don't know what their plan is. The demolition and new building are rehabbing exist, I don't know.
I mean, I don't think there's a rush, but there's also not really a reason not to at the same time.
Yeah.
We've had the public hearing, we can sit on it and then pass it if we need to. It's up to you guys.
Yeah, I'm saying, I don't think it's controversial. We've had our first reading. While it's fresh in everybody's mind and they're familiar with the text, if there's no issue, let's move forward with it. And it gives the council site plan review for any new construction.
I had a question. No, are we not doing a question?
Sure.
So on page 3,
Are we looking at the site plan review ordinance or the 405-790 special use?
the site plan review procedure, 2332. Is that what we're on?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay,
What page?
page 3. Page 2. Paragraph 1. So in that paragraph where it says, the pre-application meeting may be requested by the city administrator for any application where required, the applicant shall confer with the city administrator and other city officials designated by the city administrator. Who exactly would be other city officials and how would the city administrator designate who is supposed to be involved?
Yeah,
I can imagine it would be Sam and probably our building inspector and maybe Andy if it's a big enough project. And go ahead, Sam.
yeah, it would probably just be the building inspector or, like we did with the USDA, if we bring on a consultant, we may bring them in. But yeah, it would be staff.
Okay, staff. And then at what, I guess like, at what point would, a council person, or if at all, would a council person be involved with what's like going up in their ward?
Okay, so, there's nothing about specific wards, but I'll tell you how it's written, which is how I'd say, there's two ways of doing this. How it's written right now, it goes before P&Z, they give approval. If they give approval, everything's good, it happens. If they deny it, then the applicant can appeal to the city council. Other cities have them go through both. They just have them go through P&Z and then they have them go through city council. It's a longer process, but also very common. So if the council wishes to be involved in site plan review, we could change it for you guys to be involved.
I guess that was my question. I personally would like to be involved in
Yeah.
the process.
It's very common. You see it both ways, so I'm fine with either.
I'd like an opinion from,
I would prefer not to be involved with site plan review because I just think with other dealings with business, we have seen where it can get muddy with council members involved where we're not supposed to, or where we should not, or we don't have to be involved, so.
Debbie? Debbie?
I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't-
Since the kind of things you consider with site plan review are things like congestion, traffic flow, architecture, does it match does it look like the surrounding area, does it fit the character? But that's the kind of stuff you're looking at.
And just to follow up, some of the items for which a site plan is required would still also need council approval. So let's say someone is applying for a special use permit, right? So they will have to submit a site plan as part of that special use permit application. The site plan would be approved by planning and zoning, or reviewed and approved by planning and zoning, but the special use permit would still have to come before the council. So basically, planning and zoning would look at the site plan, they'd say, looks good to us, then they'd send it to the council, and the council would say, yes, this looks great, we'll approve the special use permit, or they'd, tear it apart, whatever, but there would still be that, in that instance, there would still be the council overview.
So what, kind of like what David was saying, like like with his concerns, correct me if I'm wrong, if our ordinances are set up to do certain things, we're just reviewing the information and we have no say, like we can't say like, I don't like that person, I don't want them to have a business here, right? Like it can't be personal. We just have to go, basically we're going by the ordinances and making sure that our ordinances and like you said, like congestion and traffic flow, like those things are being like adhered to. Is that right?
Yes, and then if there are particular circumstances that warrant certain conditions on the permit, then those can be addressed as well, but generally, yes, you're going through the code.
You're going through the code. This is not a personal vendetta, like, do we like these people? You're just going through the motions of the code and understanding what's going on.
Correct.
I think I
Okay.
have an answer for me. Yes, I think I'd want to be at least informed if something was going on in the ward to know about it.
Well, and even if the process did not involve the approval by the council, if P&Z retained the approval power and then the council just served as an appellate body. Of course, all planning and zoning commission meetings are public hearings, and the council members are welcome to attend and voice their support or opposition to any given site plan. So it's not like the council would be cut out entirely, it's just they wouldn't be serving in their official capacity.
But then what would happen is if that was coming up in planning and zoning and it was in Ward 4, would we be informed to say that at this meeting this is going to be discussed? Do you know what I'm saying?
If there's new construction, you're gonna be advised. It was just a streamline is what it was. But it, like I say, whatever your pleasure is, Steve?
I'm like David, I don't wanna make it seem like, I wouldn't wanna muddy the waters, so.
How is that muddying the waters if you're just there getting the information?
Because if you know the person and then something is rejected, they're gonna be able to say, you didn't like me and you said not to do this.
But
So-
we're not, as council people, we're not part of that, we're just listening and getting the information, I don't.
Well, what Yolanda was saying is they wanted to have a voice, and when it has.
No, I said that this, I said when we go through the process, I was asking, we're not talking about personal vendettas. I was saying like, we're just going through the process of understanding like what the architecture is, like he said, and like the congestion and like if things fit properly and we're following our codes accordingly. We're just going through the process of making sure the procedures are being followed, which I think Andy or Sam or both said, yes, that's what it is. Because we would have our ordinances that basically say like, you can or you cannot do this. Like I can be like, I don't like her. I don't want her to have a business here. Like I couldn't do that. If she has her paperwork in order and everything's fine, then that's what it is.
Right.
I mean, there's always a certain amount of discretion, right? For example, if there is a proposed use and there is concern, or proposed construction and there's concern about traffic, right? Then the council could, as part of the review, request a traffic study, right? And then if that traffic study comes back and says, yeah, this use is gonna cause major problems, then the council has the authority to impose certain conditions on the granting of the special use permit or require changes to the, I mean, honestly, before it even got to the council, that would be addressed in the site plan procedure by the Planning and Zoning Commission, so, but, I mean, so yes, there's always a little bit of discretion there, but never discretion to, you know, punish your enemies with the power of the government. So,
So,
do I
Is
have-
there a way for us to, oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, go ahead,
do I
Rick.
have an opinion?
Go ahead, Rick.
As an elected official, I think that the council needs to know, we're elected to, take care of the citizens, and if they ask us things, we need to know. Citizen asks you a question about something and you don't know, it's like, why are we here? Because they put us in this place. So I'm from the old school, so I think that the, council is very important in the city, and they need to know. Transparency, so each and everything, that's the way I look at it, so.
well, and certainly council members would be, you know, apprised of what's going on. It's our council, you know, I don't think any permits or anything are gonna be issued, or site plans are gonna be approved that council members aren't, especially the council members of that ward aren't going to be
Right.
aware of. It's, does the council want developers to have to go through the city administrator, then planning and zoning, and then the council to get approval on a site plan? Or like, is 2 steps enough? Sam, then city administrator, then planning and zoning? Or does the council want to retain that final approval power? That's really the fundamental
I
question.
think that the council needs to retain the final approval,
Sure.
you know?
And that's a very common structure. If I can throw out just one kind of, from a legal perspective, one potential advantage of setting things up the other way. So, for example, let's say that the council ultimately declines to approve a site plan and the developer is aggrieved. What are their options? Their option is to go to court, right? But if the ultimate approval power lies with P and Z, before they can go to court, they have to go to the council, right? And they have to make sure that they are listing out all of their possible arguments, right? And if they don't do that, and then they try to go to court and raise up something new, that's not allowed. That gets booted out of court, you know? So it adds an extra layer of protection to the city, because essentially it just adds more hoops for people to jump through before they get to sue the city. That's an advantage. You know,
Sure, thank you.
hoping we're not getting to that point with all of our site plan, you know, but it's a consideration, right? And it's something to
Okay.
think about.
Yolanda, you got another comment on 2332?
I was gonna ask, this might not even be something that you can do. I was gonna ask, like, when it comes to a site plan, is it possible for us to get like an example of what that looks like?
It's
I
just
could,
an
I
elevation
could
drawing,
send out
right?
an email after the meeting of the site, I can send you the USDA site plan.
Okay.
And we did look at that with the special use permit we saw, that was a while back now, over a year ago.
Yeah. So
I mean, I
here's
know
what
like
we'll
for a
do.
small business, it's not gonna be as detailed, but yeah.
Here's what we'll do. We will take this also to the next workshop. And the only debatable change we're looking at here is having council review in every case versus P and Z approving with P and Z only approving the allowable uses. We're gonna have P and C and the council approving. And that's the potential change depending on how people vote on that.
Okay.
All right? And there was the third, and where to go?
The change to 405-790, that is dependent on the adoption of the site plan ordinance, so.
Right,
It's been-
right. And I don't even know what I did with that one.
Again, the only change to that is, the requirements of the actual site plan itself, like what kind of actual information needs to be included on it, that has been, I'm proposing to take that out of the special use permit ordinance and put that in the new site plan ordinance. That's really the only change.
Yeah.
So there's nothing,
So we'll just take all three of these and pass them at the same time for simplicity, because now with the potential change to the site plan review ordinance, we're gonna just move all three of them to the next workshop.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Let me grab this. The consolidation ordinance. This by vote establishes,
What bill, what,
this is 2401,
okay.
establishing the new city of Normandy, which includes the existing city of Normandy and the village of Glen Echo Park. And in addition to that, it's the meets and bounds describing the new city. Anything to add on that, Andy?
no, these are all pretty straightforward. They've been crafted over the course of the last several months as part of the transition committee. I'm pulling them up right now in case anyone has particular questions.
And I will tell you, this one, we need to pass at the February 8th meeting.
This is the streets.
Oh,
Well, there are a number of consolidation ordinances.
yeah, that's not on this one. This is a meets and bounds of the entire city,
Oh, not just Ward 4,
not just one.
okay.
Yeah, that's a
separate.
separate ordinance. This is, this is the, now this ordinance, this is really just to update the city's code. Under the consolidation statutes, it's ultimately the county council that declares the existence of the new city and declares the legal meets and bounds, and they actually already have done that. So they adopted an order that says that effective February 8th, the new city of Normandy will exist. I provided the legal description for use in their order, and that is all squared away. So this would just
This-
update,
Coordinates our statute to meet the
Correct.
county order.
correct.
Thank you. Okay, and that one again, if there's any questions, we need them before February 8th because this needs to be passed. And we've had our first reading. Have we had our first reading?
Yeah.
Sam? I thought we did.
We have.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
thank you.
Well,
20
so actually, if
Go ahead.
I do think, this is one of those questions that's been keeping me up all night.
I know. Go ahead.
For the last several months. It's this weird I don't wanna dive too much into it in open session, but it's this kind of weird question of Normandy is a new, the new Normandy will be a new municipality. Where do we draw the line between like having to start over on things versus, there's kind of a spectrum of what that means in terms of, to put it
Do you want first
succinctly-
and second readings?
To
at
put
the
it
next
succinctly,
meeting?
I would like a first and second reading
Thank
on both of these ordinances at the next meeting.
Okay.
I think it would be safe just to make sure no one can argue that we never had a first reading.
Okay,
Didn't we have the first meeting last time?
Yeah, I think.
yeah, but I
But
think-
we need to have another
The
first and second?
2018 is the old city of Normandy had a first reading.
Oh.
We're a new city on February
Oh,
8th.
so are we gonna wait till, we're gonna wait till after February
we have
8th?
First and second reading of 2401 and 2402 and 2403 and 2404
Oh, gosh.
and 2405. We'll have first and second readings of all those ordinances.
Again, yeah.
And
Again.
it's a CYA.
As a new.
Yeah, it may or may not be necessary, but there's no harm in it.
Okay,
Position that it's not necessary, but I want to do it anyway. So
Right.
that's-
So,
You
Mayor,
can sleep at night.
We want to do it anyway.
what about the swearing in? I don't understand that, what's going on?
Well, the city council has, you guys are new council members till the April election, so we gotta swear you in. It's a new city.
Just
Yeah,
like with the
you can
leading.
think of it as you're taking an oath for the city plus Glen Echo. Because right now, you've only taken an oath for the city of Normandy.
Right.
I see.
Yeah. And I'll have to retake
Same
her,
term,
we're all
everything,
gonna.
everything.
Everything
Everything.
remains.
Everything else remains the same.
So we need to wear a certain tie and all that and everything?
It's up to you.
It's up to you.
We can make it as big as a deal as we want to. We want to
You
have
having,
campaign.
I'm
Lou's gonna be here or something, what? Lou?
I had considered it.
Have we asked
I
him?
might.
No,
No, no,
no thanks. Been there before, don't like it.
don't like it, okay. But yeah. 24, oh, go ahead.
Are we gonna discuss number 6, 24?
We're gonna discuss all of these, and I know it's, let's see. 2402, adopting and acting new ordinance, new code of ordinances, and, add on anything you'd like to add on to this, Andy. We're just basically establishing that all our old ordinances are now our new ordinances. We're
So this is
adopting our old
two
code,
weeks-
and there's
weeks from
some
now.
minor changes
2
made
weeks
to
from
that.
No, 6, the 6th.
Hey,
The eighth.
Two
Yeah.
weeks, yes, 2 weeks from
The
now.
8th,
That's-
Yeah, the 8th, we have a city council meeting. We moved it up
okay, that's
so
our,
that we have our meeting the first day we're a new
that's
city.
our normal meeting.
Well, no.
I mean, I'm just saying, that would be
Is
our,
it the 6th or Tuesday is this, what?
It's Thursday.
It's Thursday.
What day is
Thursday
Thursday?
the eighth.
it's the 8th.
Because
Okay,
that's the
then that's-
first day
Right,
that
it's the
the new
first
city
day.
I
will.
got you.
Of the new, yeah.
Correct.
Thursday, February 8th is the day that the new city comes into existence.
And that's the one that, replacing the 13th
Correct.
date.
Yes.
That
Then
is
in
correct.
March, we will go back to the regularly scheduled
2
second
weeks.
Tuesday.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
okay.
I was thinking Tuesday.
So we're gonna have hors d'oeuvres or Mayor, what-
No.
what's the deal?
I mean, I will, but I'll be on a plane, so.
You know, come,
How are
No,
you gonna
I
get
notified
reinstated, David?
Yeah, he had already had plane tickets for his
okay.
vacation. Bill 20,
Debbie,
go ahead.
What?
are we on 2404?
Not yet. We're on 2403,
Yeah, I've got the
boundaries
list.
of the fourth ward. And there were some comments about the boundaries of the fourth ward. Debbie, you wanna go ahead?
Yes, so.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was wondering about.
Last council meeting, I looked over the streets and then I compared it to online. And Castle Park Drive is not there. The, what else? Lowen Drive I couldn't find. The Bellerive Drive is Incarnate Word. That's not in Normandy.
I will tell you, it's a very weird situation. There's a small portion of it
That does.
that does.
Okay.
And it's in the weeds.
But it says all. Well, whatever, I
On-
just
on that
noticed
side.
that, and I questioned it
Yeah.
because the, and then Forest Road.
The
So
apartments,
7800 is the overpass.
yeah, the apartments are fourth ward.
Well, yeah, the Mansion Hills, but anyway, I just pointed out, you may know more than I do, but it was confusing.
Yeah.
I will say this, this is what's in the code right now.
I know.
So, you know, but yeah, this is a perfect time to address this, and if there's something that's not right, then let's fix it.
So,
But we definitely need to put Castle Park in there.
well,
Yeah, but
no, so
No.
the language does the boundaries, right? And so, are you talking about the streets?
Streets, it lists the streets and the
Well,
address.
Castle Park Drive is a private street. So,
Oh, well, that's why then. I don't know.
Yeah, and when it says including the following streets, we're not saying that these are the only streets in the fourth ward.
Say up to,
yeah,
up to.
and you know, honestly,
possibly.
that was probably written before they were apartments. So, maybe.
Probably.
That could be part of it too. But when you're talking about Florissant Road, not everyone realizes that the fourth ward does wrap up through Umsel.
Oh, I realize that.
Yeah,
That's Mansion
so-
Hill. But Mansion Hill is after the, so.
Well, and you know, Florissant, so Florissant Road has changed, to your point. But,
Perhaps. I just pointed out, you know more than I didn't understand it and it looked not accurate. So,
Right past Cool Valley.
Yeah, was that in the eighties?
81
oh,
is the
so
last time.
Evarts Avenue, between Umsel and the post office, 40 houses behind the Millennium Center. Has that been taken down?
They're gone.
yeah, that's Umsel.
So that's Umsel's property, not Normandy.
Yeah, there used to be a bunch of duplexes and single-family houses.
Well, then,
back
don't
there.
we just not put that on the list?
We could, I guess, clean it up.
That is on the list, yeah.
But we can take it off because it's not Normandy, it's Umsel.
Yeah,
All right, we'll clean that up.
Well,
Good catch, Dan.
I'm happy to clean that up. I'm gonna need some guidance on that from the residents of the fourth ward, so we'll get in touch.
Okay.
yeah, feel free
I'm
to
gonna
call.
be rammed at home too. Anyway.
Okay, next.
Good catch.
Yes.
2404, updating the traffic code. There are some weight limitations that Glen Echo wanted in their subdivision that they have now that we're gonna put into our code, and the rest of it is self-explanatory. Are there any comments or recommended changes to 2404?
What's the weight limit?
I'm gonna have to look at it. I thought it was 20,000 pounds, but I'll have to find it.
26,000.
26,000? Nothing over 26,000 pounds on Henderson, and St. Andrews Place. And I still haven't found it, but I know it's, there it is. Chapter 390, paragraph E, gross weight regulations, right on the first page.
Oh, I see it, okay.
I don't even.
Any questions? Moving on, 2405, updating the sewer lateral repair program. We currently have a $28 fee. I believe that's gonna go up to, I think it's a $50 bill. And again, that's what Glen Echo Park has now, and that's something we were gonna be facing whether there was consolidation or not.
Yes. Got it.
So, if there's any comment on 2405? All right, last item, on our agenda. Approval to move the regular city council meeting from February 13th, 2024 to February 8th, 2024. Do I have a motion to move our regular meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Last item on the agenda, strategic planning process. And I will let Sam take the lead on this, but I will tell you that when we do our strategic planning, I think we need to keep our vision and mission in mind. A safe and family-friendly community that is the historic heart of North St. Louis County, with a business corridor that attracts visitors from the entire region. So keep our vision in mind, keep our mission in mind, and base our priorities on that. That includes a high level of public service to grow the community.
So this is Kirkwood's plan, huh?
Yeah, so, and that's a great way to start, Mayor. So, I think it was this time last year, we kind of set some goals for the year, and in my memo last month, I gave an update on those. But I would like to do a more formal process that involves a lot more participation from you guys, and create a strategic plan, which usually lasts between 3 and 5 years. So, I've got a few things I just kind of want to introduce to you tonight, which if you're not familiar with the strategic planning process and what a strategic plan is, I'd love to answer some questions about that. I would like to get some input about how we want our process to look, and then I also, to start off the process, I have a little bit of homework for you guys with what's called a SWOT analysis, which is basically, I want you guys to brainstorm about what our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are, and then we'll come back and talk about them after everyone's had some time to think about it. But I put in front of, and I emailed it as well, Councilman Campbell, Kirkwood's strategic plan.
Did you just email it?
Yeah, I emailed you what I handed out here, that's what I said.
Oh, okay.
So, and strategic plans, generally the format is, you have your vision and mission statement. We already have that, so we can revisit our vision and mission statement if we'd like to. But that's the foundation of the strategic plan. So, we did that last year, we have that base layer. But it goes further than that, and basically, the council sets, usually it's between like 6 and 10 goals for the city. And these are pretty broad goals. For example, goal 1 for the city of Kirkwood, and if you want to, Chesterfield also has a really good strategic plan. Most cities have strategic plans, but it says Kirkwood will use its unique attractions to catalyze development that adds to the quality of life for residents and attracts visitors. So pretty broad, but they want new development that will improve the quality of life of their residents. That's something that their council has identified as something they want to move towards. Okay, so from there, they have kind of mid-level objectives, which are slightly zooming in a little bit closer underneath that umbrella. And so they have 3 objectives listed out. So promote commercial development, promote tourism, and develop a master plan for their downtown, right? That's zooming in from that quality of life that they were talking about in goal 1. And then from there, they have action items, or they call them strategies. And those are things that actually need to get done, and they are time bound, and they're, so for example, on objective 2, strategy D, expand and develop the wayfinding system. That's a project, right? So basically, to keep it short, I would like to, work with the council, talk about what we want to see for the city, have you guys develop goals and the strategies of things you want to see done, and then also then develop specific actions that we can step off from there. And then on the specific action things, generally cities will give a yearly update on, hey, we accomplished this one, we're halfway done with this one, this is what's happening, and then we haven't started this one yet, but this is when we're going to start it. And so strategic plan updates until the determined life of the strategic plan is done. And then you do it again, you create a new strategic plan. So, generally, and department heads are gonna be a part of the strategic planning process as we move forward with this. Because, and if you go deeper into Kirkwood's strategic plan, for example, they actually assign responsibility for certain objectives to certain people. So, some, action plans that we may come up with may be assigned to me, some may be assigned to the chief of police in the police department, some may be assigned to public works, right? But generally, the goals, are gonna, is what we are looking, well, I'm looking for the council to focus on. And then the department heads will kind of, try and come up with some, action plans. And then we'll meet together in the strategies. So the three levels, the closer we get in, we'll try and come up with projects to help us reach their goal, and then you guys will be there to keep us accountable. So, strategic, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, how do citizens factor into this plan?
I'm sorry.
Is there
Citizens.
How does
citizens, is
citizen
there,
input factor into this plan?
I will get to that.
Okay.
So, but, well, I'll get to it right now. How about that? So, different cities go through different processes for strategic plans. Like, the reason I picked Kirkwood's is because theirs is honestly pretty bare bones. If you go to Chesterfield's, it's a lot more, like, they have like statistics, and they clearly hired an expensive consultant to do theirs. But strategic plans, the important part of strategic plans are citizen input. And deciding on how much resources we want to devote to the strategic plan is an important decision, and we need to decide kind of from the outset, and it's one of the things I hope we decide tonight, is how much participation we want in the strategic planning process. And there is a cost.
Say that again,
How much participation you want. So do we want to, kind of lead from the front, come up with stuff and then inform citizens? Or do we want to really get a lot of feedback from citizens and then have the citizens kind of inform the plan? Obviously everyone, if you had unlimited resources, you'd say, well, of course we want all the citizen input we can get. But if we're talking about like getting citizen surveys out and stuff like that, we're gonna need to hire a consultant. And we're gonna have to spend money. So, strategic plans can range from that. Surveys to kind of in the middle, maybe we appoint active residents to committees to help inform the process. We certainly hold public hearings or planning sessions. I mean, those are types of things. Or we can do kind of just baseline inform, keep people informed about what we're doing. And so it's a decision that can be made, but generally there will be, we'll have to put some resources in to get effective citizen input.
What if we could just from each ward get 2 active people
Yeah.
from the beginning? I mean, we don't have to have
Good luck.
tens, but I mean, it's a start.
Sure, yeah, but it's about getting participation. We don't get citizen participation.
Well, we just have to reach out and try to find.
Well, and I'll tell you, so, and this is the kind of input that we need and need to make a decision. Well, one, are we interested in doing the strategic plan? That, of course, that's the first question, but we could do it here at workshops. We can assign people to committee and then have like, 4 council members on a committee, and then, how many ever people that just are residents that are interested are then also assigned to the committee.
On something as important as this, you can have a committee, but it's all gonna be rehashed when it gets back to us anyway. The same conversations are gonna be had. I think the council is involved in every conversation, and if we want to include residents that are interested in participating and have informal strategic strategic planning sessions and allow them to participate, that's fine too. That would have to be limited. I mean, we could really advertise, hey, Normandy's making a 3-year plan, and if you're interested in participating, this is the night you have to be there. You know, let your voices be heard. You could get people here for that, but you won't get them here for 3 and 4 meetings for that. You won't. But you could get them here on an initial meeting, get some input. I don't think we need to spend outside consultants or, what do you do with that input is what you're asking. It takes resources to take that input and create some kind of consensus out of it.
May I?
Go ahead.
So if we do the backbone of it, and then reach out and include some residents for them to be able to have an idea of what this means, and get their input, and as we develop it, no? Do you follow?
I like that. I think the initial work has to be done by us, because I don't think people really,
Yeah,
I mean, without a lot of guidance, even we are gonna struggle with,
right.
all right, we have a goal. You know, we've got a mission, we've got a vision, we have specific goals. Okay, how do we get there? What actions do, it's a lot of work.
Hey, Mayor,
Yeah.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm just telling you that our residents at this point, if you're gonna ask them for anything, they're gonna say they just need service. They need their trash picked up, they need their leaves picked up, they need the potholes.
Well, and that's good. They do need all those
That's what they're gonna
services.
ask for. As far as planning, anything else, they're gonna ask you, plan to give us our services. That's all they wanna plan for. I mean, Kirkwood, it sounds good. Kirkwood's on an $80 million budget over there.
Yeah, well,
You know,
it,
I mean, it's nice. I grew up in Kirkwood, I understand, but I live in Normandy now. But the reality of it all is,
our strategic plan's gonna look nothing like Kirkwood.
Right.
no.
And our
no.
strategic plan is going to be,
I,
provide the services.
but I'm saying,
But
that's
if
it.
we can only provide certain services, I need to know, if we only have resources to do X and Y good, but Z we
Sam,
can't do good, we
I
need
hate to say
input
it, Sam,
to make that decision.
but the resources we need to do is just to give them their regular, everyday services. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to be planning on trying to do. Everyday services. This
Yeah.
trash company is getting ready to what? We're getting ready to get another trash company because we're gonna let this one go? Or what we're gonna do? You know, the leaves, I mean, we put out flyers to pick up leaves. We didn't do it. You know, we didn't do it. They're still out there. Potholes are still there. I don't know if there was salt dropped or anything with the last snow or whatever, I don't know. The services, that's what they're asking
Well,
for.
for example, provide quality services. That's a goal. How do you
That's
get there?
it, that should be our
Yeah.
plan. Our
Well,
total-
our plan has to be more than, we have to think bigger than that.
Look,
Or we're gonna
Well,
die.
well, we gotta start
With
somewhere.
everything, there's 100 decisions
Yeah,
that need to be made. Like with the trash service, do we go out there, do we get basic trash service, right? That just,
Well-
no bulk picked up, no
well,
valet
the thing
service,
is we have a public
no
works,
yard waste,
but we still have a public works.
no,
And it's-
no
it's-
yard
it's-
waste. Or do we go for higher in-service? That's gonna cost people more.
No, what I'm saying is this. what
Right,
they're
right
paying-
now, I may have an idea of what, you know, Councilman in Ward 3 thinks, what Councilman in Ward 1 thinks, and I may actually have a decent idea of what the residents think.
Yeah,
But unless we have a process where they have their voices heard, there's nothing I can point to be held accountable for.
Sam,
And then
I'm hearing-
also
as a
explain to
council-
citizens
as a
why
council
we
person,
make the
I'm
decisions
hearing
that we make.
everybody on this council should be hearing the voices of their residents.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
And the example just given, when we put out this RFP for services, what are we gonna ask for? What do the people want? Do they want a low bill? Do they want premium service for more money? What do they want? That's the question.
there's a-
we have to answer.
I have a question. Does a strategic plan talk about operational issues, or does it talk about like the bigger picture? Because I feel like that's an operational issue, and that's not something that you would have in a strategic plan.
It's an example of that every goal has to have actions, and every actions, there's a lot of decisions to be made. So,
Well, for example, like, you could have two goals that both sound good. You can have one that says, provide affordable services or provide quality services. But that one word makes differences. Or if you have a goal to be fiscally responsible, and then you have quality services, well, those are gonna butt heads at certain points. So, I mean, that's why you need the input. And I kind of skipped over this part at the beginning, but one, the planning process is good because we're gonna discover issues that we didn't even know that we had, right? And bring things to light and really get our priorities straight, right? Then we're gonna have a document to point to, for example, when we made the decision 3 years ago to get rid of our trash service, we were not in a place to communicate why that had to be done, because it did have to, it absolutely had to be done. But we did not have a strategic plan or even the financial reporting at that point to explain to residents why that decision had to be made. Whereas if we have a strategic plan and if we have to make tough decisions, and we're absolutely going to have to make tough decisions in the next 5 years, we can then point to a document explaining this is why we did it. And then third, for service delivery, and this may be the most important one for you, Councilman Nelson, is accountability. Because on the lowest, when you get down to the lowest, action plans, it's going to say, hey, department head or city administrator, you have to do this, and this is how long you have to do it. And come back in 1 year and tell me where you're at. So, basically, planning, transparency, and accountability.
Yes.
So are we deciding tonight whether we want to do it ourselves or whether we want professionals to help us?
Well, we can't decide that tonight. Right now,
What are we deciding? What are you asking us to decide tonight? I guess.
The bare minimum of what I want to get done is I want to assign the homework of the SWOT analysis, let you guys,
Yeah.
put your input in there, and we'll get back to that. And I wanted to introduce the strategic plan and kind of why I think we should do it.
Give an example.
And then the questions we need to start thinking about, and if everyone's in agreement, we can make the decision, is who's going to be taking the seat on this? Is it going to be the council itself, or is it going to be a committee? What level of citizen participation do we want? Do we want to inform, or do we want participatory action from our citizens? And what does that look like in between?
What exactly, I'm sorry, you said a lot of things, but tonight we're actually deciding what?
We're deciding how much citizen participation we want in this process, and we're deciding, do we want any outside help, which would cost money.
Okay, go around.
Excuse me, I think we should decide to wait until we get a full board, and as Campbell said, we got an election coming up. We got to have input from the other people that are gonna be here. We know Victoria Vales Glenn Eccles should be here, so we can't make these decisions.
Sure we can.
Well,
We've got a council in place right now.
This is, the strategic planning process is going to be at least through May. I mean, it's going to involve the new board.
Yeah.
It's going to be a several month.
Well, I'm just saying,
process.
before we start voting on this plan, let's do what you just asked. Let's fill this out, send it to the board that's not here, and let's fill this out and get the questionnaires, and then we can look at it and go from there, instead of just trying to put this plan together here.
We're not trying to put a plan together. We're trying to decide how much community input we want, and I think, and I want to hear from everybody, I think we take the lead on this. We put it together, we inform, and if people are interested in input, they'll stand at that podium and give it to us when they have a clue as to where we're going with this.
Okay. So
I think that it is, I think that it's a great task to take on, like as a council, to come up with this strategic plan and everything. My concern is that, and raise your hand if I've never made a strategic plan. I have not gone to school to make a strategic plan. I don't know if anyone else has any like experience with this, like please let me, like please speak up. But I feel like if we take on this task, and I would like to refer everybody back to the gentleman from Cape Girardeau that came and talked to us and discuss like procedurally how things are supposed to go. And like we do have a limited staff. I think we need to recognize that also. And also the fact that we are very intelligent council people, but also none of us have gone to school to like actually like implement this. And it probably would behoove us to talk to an expert or two about like what that looks like. I mean, I can certainly appreciate Sam's knowledge, but when it comes to like doing these things, I would hate for us to like spin our wheels and it's like, oh, you should have thought about this. And like we have this really pretty document that we all think we did a great job on and we want to pat ourselves on the back, but they're like experts that could somehow like help us along with it, that we did not consult. And all we end up with is a really pretty document.
Well, I'll just say facilitators are very common in the strategic planning process. It's just a question of, do we want to spend the money? And it doesn't have to be, it's not as expensive as the guy from Cape Girardeau coming. Some of the stuff he was throwing out there and the numbers on them, they were pretty expensive. But you can get someone to come to a planning session and facilitate. Because just like you said, getting that third party who has no skin in the game with Normandy to facilitate the discussion can be very useful. But at the same time, if we don't have the money, I don't think that we should let that be a barrier to doing the plan.
Well, and I.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't talk about it, but I think if we want to do it right, you're gonna have to spend some money. You know, I mean, Pepsi and Coca-Cola, they spend money on advertising. If you want to do it right, you're gonna have to spend something.
Well, that's, I just wonder if we have that luxury. We've got a budget right now, that we'll have to write a budget amendment and take money from somewhere to dedicate to this. And I, quite frankly, don't know where it would come from this year.
Well, I feel like I kind of feel like this. I kind of feel like we're saying like to ourselves, like we want like to buy a really nice bicycle, and we don't have a bicycle right now. And so like, okay, if we do this and we end up with like something that is kind of jarbled or everything, we could end up with a bicycle with one wheel. So like,
I give us more credit.
if we don't have the money right now, then maybe we should just wait on this and do it later. If we can't do it effectively, I would hate to do something this important, like he said, that is going to like be on our books for like a vision for like 5 or 10 years. And then like, you did it wrong. Got to go back to the drawing board. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying.
I do, but I respectfully disagree. I think something's better than nothing. I don't think you don't have a plan to move forward. You have to have some plan of where are we gonna go and how are we gonna get there? And if it's next year that we hire, are you there still, Yolanda? Your picture went away.
Yeah.
Okay. If we can't afford a facilitator, I would hate to not still work on a plan on the direction we wanna go. Even if it's a minimal plan, we're all on the same page. Here's where we want to go. Here's what we want to do. How can we do that? And granted, if we had a facilitator, that would be probably a better end product. If we hired it out, it would certainly be a much better product. But we have challenges, budgetary challenges, and I just don't know that we can afford to do anything but what we're talking about doing right now. But I don't want to not do anything because we can't afford. Please, Debbie.
So,
there are levels of
as a teacher,
Debbie,
Yolanda,
hold on, Yolanda.
So there's a template here. It doesn't have to be that complicated. So we take the template, apply it to Normandy. We all live in Normandy. It doesn't have to be a complicated beginning document. It's something to start with. Does that make sense?
It does.
We need the opinions. Let's get it out there and go from there, like you asked for.
Yeah, and I want to say one thing, just touch on what Councilwoman Campbell said. if you start digging through people's strategic plans, you will absolutely find strategic plans that are bikes with wheels. I mean, people do this stuff wrong all the time, and they don't really represent their residents very well. But those same plans are all, I guess my point is, you still run that risk with facilitators and consultants.
They don't
If I
know
may-
Normandy.
Every time,
If I may though, before we get into anything else, Yolanda, what subject do you teach?
Math.
Okay, so you have state standards, you have district curriculum, and then you have department standards, right?
Yes.
Okay, so again, it's been, 18, 19 years since I've actually been in a classroom, but, what you execute and what you do as a teacher is very much in line with this strategic planning. So if you're able to pivot and adapt, that I don't know if that would give you a better framework for understanding this and what this needs
I
to
would
be.
agree to a certain extent.
Sure, yeah, but the thing that I'm seeing is for a strategic plan, we need bare bones so that we can operate. That way we're not spending an ungodly amount of money on, hey, writing checks because we have to have, Angela Dorn writing our checks or, signing off on our checks, as opposed to having, a city clerk already in place writing the checks and having them approved by a city administrator, for instance, what have you. Having those proper procedures, having proper avenues so that we can spend our money wisely, because otherwise we're not going to be executing what we need to or what we can because we don't have a plan in place.
I would agree to that to a certain extent, because although I've been doing it for 25 years. I consider myself an expert, but if you ask me to look at curriculum for, let's say, government, right? And then I need to unpack it. That's a whole different animal. What I'm saying is,
It doesn't translate
I
quite
am
the
not
same.
I'm a very intelligent person. I feel like we all are on the city council. However, I am not a person who has engaged in this activity or understands the procedures of a strategic plan. And correct me if I'm wrong, Sam. You said you want to have an end game in 3 months, right?
I said that was the minimum.
Amen.
And I only said 3 months because there's no way we get this done before the election, because I think Councilman Nelson mentioned something about a new seat. But I just want to, so as far as right now, we don't have to hash the whole thing out. I think right now, just to get started, I've got this SWOT analysis, there's instructions.
Let's start there.
Yeah, let's just start there.
I agree.
And we can bring it to the workshop.
Yeah.
And it's just brainstorming. You can just bullet point these things if you want to type it up. You don't have to put your name on it if you want to. I think it's ultimately a public
my
record
writing
if
anyway.
it's someone, but I want it to be candid. So
Right.
yeah, if you have any questions, if you can take some time over these next 2 weeks, just sit down one night and spend some time with this. If you bring it back to the council meeting on February 8th, then between the 8th and the February workshop, I'll kind of go through what everyone submitted, and I'll go through it with the mayor, and then we'll try and see where there's consensus and bring to the board where we're thinking with our SWOT analysis, where we're at.
Where exactly, do you remember when we did a whole city, we did a list of what we wanted to see in the city? And every council person submitted something.
Yep.
Where exactly would that be something that would go into this SWOT plan or no?
Yeah, so I think it was, I actually mentioned to the mayor, we did that about a year ago. This is a very similar process. But this is more directed, and it is supposed to be kind of some bigger picture stuff. But sometimes the big picture is the simple things like Councilman Nelson is saying. But basically, what do you think we're doing good as a city? That's our strengths. What do we do well? What's unique? What do our residents like? What are we doing better than cities around us? What are our weaknesses? Where are we underperforming? Who's doing something better than us that we're not doing? What can we do to improve? Opportunities, what's coming down in the future that we can really leverage to be better? And then threats, what's coming in the future that we need to prepare for? And so, I put a whole page so you can kind of brainstorm with your pen. Don't feel like you have to fill the whole thing up, just, this is your chance as a council to basically frame the questions that we're gonna be grappling with through the process.
Very good, well said.
Thank you, Sam.
No problem.
Now, I'm not aware that there's a closed session issue. Are you, I see it on the agenda.
No, I think it's,
I don't believe we
I
have.
think that's
anything
the
to discuss.
placeholder on the agenda.
Very good, okay. Very good. If there's nothing else, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Is there a second?
We're not going into closed session now.
No, we're not.
No.
Good.
All in favor?
So,
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Hi,
Thank you.
thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Yolanda.
Thank you.
Sam, could Vicky be a part of this filling out?
Yeah, I'll send it to her as well. I was kind of hoping